Family-owned Soccer Innovation is your go-to source for top-quality equipment. Whether you're a player, a supportive family member, or a dedicated coach, they have everything you need to elevate your game. For players, their innovative equipment are designed to boost your skills and performance on the pitch. From their agility cones to their portable goals, they have you covered. And family members, they offer durable equipment that's built to last because we know your support is critical to your player. Coaches, trust me, they can provide the equipment you need to run effective training sessions and shape the next generation of soccer players. Visit Soccer Innovations at soccerinnovations.com to start elevating your game with them. And if you use the code PITCH, PITCH, you can receive up to 10% off your next order. I want to tell you about something I've used and I truly believe in. Replayer. It's a sideline camera built for youth sports. Just set it up, hit record, and it captures the entire game automatically. No chasing the ball, no holding your phone, just hands-free, stress-free recording. The in-game tagging is one of my favorite features. One tap, and you can mark a big goal, ankle-breaking moves, or a clutch tackle. Then pull those clips for later for review, highlights, or social media. And the live streaming's next level. A buddy of mine actually watched his son's game while flying cross-country at 30,000 feet. That blew me away. If you're a parent or coach at the field every weekend, Replayer is a game changer. Head to replayer.com. That's REEPLAYER.com. And I think you'll be amazed. Hello and welcome back to Chat by the Pitch. This is Ian Babcock, your host. Today, I am joined by John Keagan from Everton FC. That's Everton Football College. I have to start off with sorry about some of the audio. I know it's not the cleanest as I like, but it's what I have, and I hope you all still will enjoy this episode. What we do is we dig deep into what real player development looks like, breaking down the football college model, the pathway from 16 to U18, and how the environment shapes the outcomes for players. If you're a parent or player trying to understand what actually works in development, this one matters. So let's start this chat and head to the pitch.
My name's John Keagan. I'm lucky enough that when I left what you guys would class as high school, and played football professionally and played for a number of years at a couple of EFL in my career. So luckily, I spent probably just under my first year as a coach actually in Connecticut as a coach development, obviously teaching coaches how to become coaches because I'd done my badges as a young boy. I'd done them when I was like 18 because I knew I always wanted to stay in football. Even after I finished, but I obviously wasn't expecting to retire as young as I did. Obviously spent a bit of time in the US, so I've got a bit of an affinity for US soccer and obviously fell in love with the country and the way of life there and things like sport in America, which is still a passion of mine today. Love the NFL, love the NBA. I like going to watch the odd game of baseball, but I wouldn't be the biggest fan of the baseball. I like the Yankees, obviously, but people will probably say that's just because they're the most successful team, but they're not. I'm actually a Patriots fan because I lived in Connecticut. So people used to say that I was a bit of a glory hunter because obviously the Patriots were everything and Tom Brady. But even now, I'm still a Patriots fan and the Patriots are terrible. So obviously, I have just followed the best teams. And then obviously, I made my way back home to England after my time in the US. I knew I was always going to come home. So come back to the UK and obviously started my coaching career here. Worked at Liverpool and then luckily enough, a friend of mine worked at Everton and they asked me would I had an idea of something that I thought we could create at Everton. Went to the gentleman at the time who was head of Everton, have their own school as well. So they don't just have a college, we don't just have our international programme and obviously your first team, women's Super League team. We actually Everton have a school for 14 to 16-year-olds. So I had the idea that we could create what now is nationally known as a football college. So the idea of the football college was that obviously in England, if you're an academy, originally it was meant for boys who were of a really high level, being at academies here in the UK. At 16 in the UK, and if you're at a pro, you can either get released or you get offered what's called a scholarship contract. So what happens is within that 2 years, you have to prove then up until the age of 18 that you're enough to then either get a pro contract, which is obviously a professional contract, or you get released again. You'd be released from clubs of a high level. We keep them engaged in full-time education, because leave education at 16, obviously high school goes all the way through to 18. At 16, you can leave education altogether. So we would keep them involved in also get a full-time. Any academy players would train every day, weekly games, strength and conditioning sessions, analysis. So just began our 8th year from a college point of view. And over the last 7 years, we've been hugely successful. Won tournaments and league championships, both locally, international tournaments in the US, obviously in Europe. Before last, we've actually 17 squads actually become world champs. We won the world championship. So something that we're very proud of. We've also program. We've gone back in one of our remit. Was a remit of ours originally, both in England, Asia, in Europe, and also the US. Which again is something that we've actually had 2 of our college girls this year have actually gone on to make their WSL debuts. This team, they played in a cup competition, which is something that is really obviously something that we've now actually put for Everton's women's team, which is obviously a major achievement. So we've had a lot of success stories. Luckily enough, this year, and our college is now actually based at Goodison. So obviously, which is Everton's obviously stadium. So probably I'm at Goodison at the moment. Our players study here, so for our student athletes to obviously be based here at the League Stadium. Obviously the Fifth Stadium are probably more. I think also previously is that a lot of our students, so probably our students actually now are in the US. Finished with us at 18 and now actually have moved to the US, JUCO College in the US. So they with their footballing career as well as their education, obviously in America, which is something again that we're really proud of and really happy for them. But started with, I think it was 30 players after around 240 players a year. So we've been really successful.
Wow, that's impressive. Now, is the college you talked about at the age of 16? This is where I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah.
At the age of 16, so they get finished with their what we would call high school here. You said, and then they move on to college. Did I catch that right?
Yeah. So you can leave. High education difference here. So education. We go to high school until we're 16, and then at 16 you either have 2 decisions. You either leave education altogether, which in England I know in the US you don't, or you go to college. And obviously you go to college for 2 years, and then the grades that you gain obviously go to university. I know you guys in the US, it's 18 and then straight to university. The last 2 years of high school in America, we class as college over here.
Okay. So so you talked about Everton. So what age do you all start accepting players into the program?
So they join us at 16 years of age.
So for 16 through what age do they finish? They graduate from the program, 18, 19?
18, 19, the 18, 19. A 2-year program with us or 3.
So you have this time frame where they play for you for a short period of time. How, out of curiosity, sounds like you have a very successful rate of them going on to, we'll call it university. Keep it simple for everyone. Going on to university here in the United States or going on to university there. How, you said you had 150 players in the United States playing in the collegiate world. What is the success rate of these players going on then, leaving your program, either going off to university or a pro contract?
So the one thing with our program is that obviously we want everyone to be a success story. So we would never, the one thing that we pride ourselves on is getting outcomes for our players or our student athletes. So that it's very rare that they finish their 2 or 3 years with us and they're not moving on to something. So they're either on to university in the UK, university scholarships in the US, obviously a professional or some type of football, semi-pro, pro route, or obviously they're going into employment. Predominantly they go into employment within the sports industry. So we have ex-students who now work for us at the club. So whether it's at the academy, in the recruitment department, We have students who've actually come through our program who now actually work with us and for us at the college as teaching assistants or TA or coaches, whatever it may be, physiotherapists. So it's very rare, and I can probably name them on one hand, students who don't walk away from their experience with us with nothing or with moving on to the next stage of their career.
That's amazing. Statistically, that's amazing. I look at this as a parent that my 11-year-old son keeps on begging us so he can quit school and go play soccer full time.
Yeah.
At 11, go to a soccer school.
Okay.
And where it's an online learning or a hybrid learning classroom type setting, and then he gets to go play soccer for 4 hours a day, then go do team training. That's his dream at 11 years old.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, you actually have to get an education and be smart. And from the sounds of it, they have a great program. So what is a typical student's day like? If you don't mind walking through it with me really quickly, and then we can branch off from there.
No. So a typical student's day would be that they would arrive at college around 9 a.m, class in 9 till 10:15. Then they would have a break. Then they would go back to class from probably around 10:30 to around 12. Then they would have lunch. Then they would go to training. They would do a strength and conditioning session. And then they would do training with their squads. So that's a typical day. But then obviously leading up to games, obviously it changes slightly with regards to obviously pre-game analysis, obviously after game, post-game analysis sessions, and their recovery sessions from obviously the game day. So everything that you would get with a professional team or our first team, and so on to speak, we mimic that as much as possible, or as closely as we can from that point of view.
So they're getting a professional schedule education thrown into it from the sounds of it. And then the education, out of curiosity, is the education they're getting, since it's equivalent to our junior and senior year here in the United States, is it more of a traditional education, or is it more pushing towards like the collegiate side of the university side of education format? Because I feel here in the United States, a lot of kids, by the time they are juniors and seniors in the United States, they could graduate. I could have graduated when I was a senior. I should rephrase this. I could have graduated almost by the time I was a senior in high school. I had one class I had to take my senior year in high school. Instead, I filled it with more classes because I was a glutton for punishment.
Yeah, no, I think for our 16 to 18-year-olds, it's very much not re-going over stuff that you know, obviously, the next of education is preparing you for university. So that's obviously it's not redoing stuff that you've done from the. It's obviously all qualifications that they will do that will get them into university here in England or in the US. The grades obviously in the same qualification need. I think I know what you're doing. So we have international players that come to us as well. Some of them are university students, and they are part of our international program. So when I speak to a lot of them, they also tell me obviously them stories that if you go to our student athletes that come here to study in university, so our program deliver for them, because in the US obviously to study is your bachelor's degree from the age of obviously 18, 19. It takes 4 years in the US to gain it. In the UK, with our student athletes, it only takes 3 years in your bachelor's degree. So it's actually a year less studying. And the reason for that, I know you can educate me if I'm wrong, is that in the US, your first year of study in the US, you're actually just in classes and earning credits. You don't actually start your degree course or whatever your topic is. You're obviously going over stuff that you've done as a senior in high school, obviously, which you said. With university here in England, from minute one, you're straight into your topic. So you're actually finished. And then obviously in the UK, for your fourth year, if you wanted to stay for a 4th year, it only takes 1 additional year to get your master's distinction here in England, compared to obviously in the US, where it can take 1 or 2 years, depending on what subject you're doing. So you can end up being at university for 4, 5, maybe 6 years. Where here in England, after 4 years, you're done with your bachelor's and your master's. So it's a really big for obviously students athletes that maybe want to come to the UK, be a part of obviously what we do, program, but then also study and learn and get an education, get the degree a lot quicker. Obviously, our program, where, in my opinion, obviously I've seen quite a lot of programs in the US, and don't get me wrong, some of your really want schools, their programs are phenomenal. most of them are better than a lot of professional clubs here in England, like your League Two, League Three, even some of your Championship clubs. With our programme, it obviously, if that makes sense, with us being Everton.
I'm taken back because I like what you're doing. I think there's a lot there. Now, if you get accepted into the program there, is it free to the athlete to be part of it? Is it part of Everton FC, the main club? How does it affiliates and how is it paid for the student? Because here in the United States, there's nothing that's free. Everything there is free, but you get scholarships. Is it a scholarship type program there for these players?
So again, it's very similar. Obviously, the 16 to 18-year-old is very, because it's obviously minors, so to speak, where you're 18 plus, which is your university program. It's very similar to the US model with regard, obviously, there's a cost regard housing, tuition, and obviously athletic, but also a lot of scholarship opportunities here compared to the US. But there's a lot of opportunity for students, so to speak, where there's no opportunity at all, any type of scholarship or any type of opportunity. There are lots of things in place here where obviously financially we can support people and help them, and obviously provide a service or a program. Obviously, it's very different to the US model.
Man, we have it backwards here. How, when players do come through and these athletes come through, what is the academic standards that they're being held to, and what is obvious? There's the athletic side, but is there a certain GPA they have to maintain to be part of this program? Is it a program where they are held to a higher standard because you have the Everton name and you guys want to make sure that these players are well representing of who you all are?
Yeah, so your standard university student, or the criteria that's needed in the UK, standard criteria is a 3 at an SAT, so obviously have an SAT score or an ACT score, and then certain universities require students in the US to take a certain amount of AP classes while they've been at high school. Some don't, so it depends on obviously the university. But from the of students, athletes in the US, 3.0 is a huge amount.
It's very coming from the American side. How United, do you get players from the States? Because I know that there's very strict rules for foreigners to play in some of the programs over there, or that's what I was told. Like my son Landon, I would have to have a job over there. I would have to have certain things depending on the country. And I have no clue about England just because it's all new to me. And do you have a lot of Americans, people from the United States playing, or do you have a lot of people from other parts of Europe playing with you all, or is it mostly kids from the UK?
Predominantly it's UK-based kids, but we've got about 35 international players from all different parts of the world. It's not overly different with regard to, obviously, because we're here on a student visa, so obviously to come and study in the UK, obviously you apply for the visa processes with the university. I can see with regards to somebody fill out.
That's encouraging, because as a parent that has a young kid, and I know that a lot of kids want to go to the UK to play soccer. It's a different level than here, and a different level of talent. Like, we have talent here, but the way I was described it by a coach recently, it's a completely different level of commitment and different level of love of the game than here in the United States. A lot of kids view it. A lot of kids love the game here, and have a desire for the game, but it's not ingrained in our culture like it is there. So the level and the desire and the want and the pride is a completely different level. So
yeah, I think it's our national sport. You guys have a lot of different sports that are more ingrained in US culture with regards to baseball, American football, and so on. But if I'm being completely honest, obviously over here the elite level is obviously the standard is ridiculously high. But I've spent a lot of time in the US over 18 months. The level of football, the level of soccer that I see when I go to a lot of events, tournaments, and ECNL events or MLS next events, that the standard is really high also in the US. I think sometimes people will put down the US as if it's never going to be at that level, where for me there's a US also for me, which I was pleasantly surprised about, is the level of girls football. The level of girls football for me is probably, if I'm being completely honest, I would say a lot higher, women's football or girls football. If you'd gone back 10 years, there wouldn't have been lots of girls teams. Obviously, at the moment, we've got one professional league, obviously the same as the US. But I remember going to the States 10 years ago, and there was a lot of girls football then. Even like club soccer's obviously been going for 20, where England, you would have had a handful of girls teams, 10, 20 teams, but that would have been it. England now, the girls football, obviously the Lioness and so on, and the Lioness European champions, and obviously football become professional here. The standard of football for me, I think, is really high. Don't get me wrong, I know there's different levels with regards to East MLS Next, which is fine. But I think sometimes people can be a little towards the US as if it's a million miles behind, and in my opinion, it's not. There's a lot of good football, even obviously a lot of good club teams in the US. That a lot of club teams here, we were classing as weekend football, so club soccer here compared to the US is very different here. So I know you guys in the US to play club soccer, it's very expensive for parents. Obviously, goes into the thousands of pounds, which I find unbelievable. Here in England, it's completely different. Here in England, we probably pay around £30 a month for our children to play soccer, and that covers referee fees, your pitch fees, your training sessions. Obviously, coaches do it voluntarily here. Where obviously, obviously club soccer, it's big business, isn't it? It's very different in our culture compared to obviously the US culture of club, so to speak. But also a substantial amount of money for their child play soccer in the US. I think that also rings a lot because people aren't going to pay a lot of money if they're not getting good quality from their club team. So I think that it's having to pay it in the US. They standards a hell of a lot in the US that's made. You have to create a product that are obviously supporting what we do financially. If that makes sense, I'm just putting up on charge.
Okay. No, I get what you're saying. I'm going to give you my opinion on American soccer, American football. I'll call it what it is. The football here to me is, how do I describe it? As you go up, the more expensive it gets. And so we don't have the best talent, in my opinion, playing at the highest levels because these kids get priced out.
Yeah.
And that's how I see it here.
So, yeah, I completely understand that. I think that's one of the things when you come to the US, maybe 15, 16 years, or returned a couple of years ago, obviously it changed vastly with regards to obviously the pay-to-play model and so on and so forth. But it was, for me, it's so big, it's never going to change now unless there's a real big change in US soccer I speak to a lot of club directors, especially in Dallas, some of the really big clubs in Dallas. I have really good friends at them, and they say, John, it's never going to change because it's gone too far one way now. So it's like an argument that you're never going to win it. It's never going to change. It's like you've just got to get on with it and try and do it as best you can. Because here in England, that model wouldn't work because number one, people wouldn't pay. People wouldn't pay to play football in the UK because obviously football's over 125 years old here. But you pay amount to cover certain costs. But with it being our national sport, anyway, it's always been that way. It's always been teams, and then you've developed in teams. Obviously, for us, it's that distraction of other sports. But I think also, and please tell me if I'm wrong, I think a lot of it is geared towards obviously scholarships at university. Playing at a certain level will get you opportunities from a scholarship opportunity or scholarship offer or a D1 offer if you're at certain clubs. And this is just information that people tell me. And I have no real opinion on it because I don't have any right to have an opinion. I'm not American. I've never lived that. I haven't got a child in that system. But I can also see both aspects. What parents are saying, obviously what clubs do, because they do. I think it's also down to the parents. Do they think that's it? Realistically, it's a bit of a business transaction. I think the thing that worries me, and I think maybe people like the US, is that if you look at some of your greatest players ever, i.e. your Pelés, your Maradonas, your Waynes and so on, they weren't, and it's no disrespect to them people, I'm sure they would, is that they weren't from background could have paid thousands of pounds for to play football. They were street ballers, they were street kids in a sense. I was the same myself. Used to play at school on concrete. We had broke down as a goal post, and it was the best of your life as a kid growing up, where kids in the US, from me, they're not going to get that. If you're an inner city kid, you might have all the ability to be the greatest in the world, but you're probably never going to be seen because you probably end up playing basketball or you end up playing baseball because you might have football, whatever it may be. And that is for me, association. And don't get me wrong, the English FA are very good. There's lots of investment gone in over the last couple of years with 4G, 5. The people I speak to in the UK don't do enough to obviously help, if that makes sense, because it's more about how much money you can make off people instead of actually providing sense. Hopefully, the people who are telling me that are wrong, it's completely wrong. But I think from what I've seen the last couple of years, is that for me is where there could be a lot better. It could be a lot better. Some of the kids that play club soccer, a lot of the kids that play club soccer, and obviously the mums that support them, which is amazing. There is some amazing talent, but it would also be good for everyone to be able to get that, because obviously it's no skin off my nose, but for you guys as Americans, I think the one thing you've missed from a team point of view is that you have great players who are technically good, but you don't really have that one genius, that street baller, a Messi or a Ronaldo, or that, which is there's a different level, if that makes sense. And them types of players always seem to be, if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense, because if you start, I was listening to, I can't remember what podcast it was, and they're talking about the biggest transfers from Barcelona, and majority of them never came through their academy. I think they said one player came through their academy, and the top 10 transfers for Barcelona. All the rest were brought in later on in their teenage years that all came from street soccer, or I don't know what else to call it, street ball. And they were not brought up through the academy. If you look at most of the greats, most of them didn't come through the academy. They were discovered playing street soccer somewhere. And with that being said, we are missing that in the United States. We are missing that creativity side. We're missing that because, I'll put it this way, a lot of our fields are locked up. The goals are locked up. You can't even use them, or the field is actually locked up. We have some gorgeous fields. And I think part of that reason why is because people don't treat property with respect, and it gets ruined and destroyed because people aren't respectful.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, I look at my son. He wants to go down. His practice field is 2 minutes from the house. And I think after the World Cup being here, there will be a huge shift, and hopefully the game will change. I know organizations and companies are trying to find a way to help teams pay and make soccer free in the United States. You talked about the MLS, and when they FIFA came to them and says, if you want to be a D1, a top tier league in the world, you have to have a free program. So their top boys side, I don't know about the girls side, I know the top teams, the top one team for every age group in the MLS is free, 100% free. Travel, training, it's all free. And that is the only way it happens. And I think with the introduction of the USL coming to the United States, it's going to change how the soccer world's here, because it's going to compete with the MLS. And I feel like it's going to drastically change the dynamics, because if they want to be a D1 league in the world, like at the MLS, and compete with them, they're going to be told the same thing. Soccer will have to be free for your top teams, and there's nothing they can do about it. And that was part of the agreement. And like you said, it is a transaction. It's a commodity. It is everything along those lines, and it stinks. But coming home and just playing. Do you find that because it is your national sport and that you are part of a huge ecosystem of football, do you find that your community really rallies around the youth players and rallies around everyone to help them be part of the game?
Yeah, unbelievably. The thing is, here, when you grow up as a kid, I see that's another thing that's crazy, is that some of the players actually are friends. As in, don't get me wrong, it's not that they don't like each other, but they have one boy that is on one side of Texas and another boy who's on the other side of Texas who play for the same club team, who only see each other when they play. Where here in England, as kids, you grow up. I mean, my two sons at the moment, my oldest boy's 8, their team that they play for, which would be a club team, they're all the friends who they go to school with, and they grow up with them players, and they'll stay together all the way up until the age of 16. And you may get someone who gets picked that might ever sign a player, but if them boys will stay together throughout their school years. Where a big ECNL club, you may get 2 or 3 that are actually really close friends. The others are just players who they play with. So it's different here with regard. It's completely different. So obviously we bring them up, and again, but that goes down to the club, the soccer model in the US, which again, it's like it is what it is. And again, you can educate me more on that. Numerous people in the US, that model is never going to change because it's always going to be there. Now, when something really drastic happens, I mean, from a business point of view, some of the amazing events that people put on and showcase events, and there must be a lot of people employed through club soccer in the US as well, not just from a club, but also obviously the people who run the organisations and things like hotels that people stay in and travel. It must be a really lucrative, obviously substantial financial business to send people, and that's great. If obviously people want to do that, that's amazing. But here in England, it's a completely different culture with regards to what we do and how we do it. And again, whether we're right or wrong, or the US is right or wrong, or whatever the structure in other countries around the world, unfortunately, that's just it is. You know what I mean?
And I think, how do I describe it? For our communities, you have your own fields. And that was the one thing I've learned is a major difference here from the rest of the world is that every club has their own field. When I was talking to the new coming USL team, they want their home fields to be home fields where families gather after matches and have a pint, break bread with each other, have a meal together. And we don't have that. We travel, 40 minutes to half to some soccer field. We play our game and we turn around and go back. Team camaraderie. You talked about playing with the same kids there too.
Yeah.
You're about to say something and I cut you off. Sorry.
No, I think it's for me, it's very similar here in that aspect where if you've got a group of play together as friends, if there is a boy who's obviously exceptionally good, then that boy people will see that there will be better teams that will want him to play for them, and that then is obviously up to the parents and whether they want to push the child or whether they just are happy for their son or daughter to be playing with the friends, or if an academy does come in and manage them as well. But predominantly, players will always find their level, if that makes sense. Where if you're, for example, your boy, if he's head and shoulders above all the boys that he's playing with, at some point he will realise it. You as his parent will realise it. His manager will realise it. And other teams who want him to move to them will realise it. And that's at any level, whether it's what we call grassroots, obviously academy level, professional. It's no different as you go through the age brackets. It's just the way football is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's the hard thing. Football is a newer sport here. It's not, most parents they have never played it or they only played it in school. We're getting to the point now we're having the first generation of parents actually played the game here. And it's becoming more common for parents to have some of a soccer background. But you take someone like me who played soccer. My education, reading books, talking to folks like you, and learning as much as possible. And not many parents understand. It took me a long time not to say a word to my son when in the games, because I can't tell him how to play the game. I came to that realization when he was about 6. I can't tell him how to be a better soccer player, but I can tell him how to keep his emotions in check and help him with that side of the game. And as I have learned to step away from being a parent and not coaching, stepping away from being the coaching side of the game and just being a parent to him and telling him, I don't care what you do. Just go out there, give me 100% and have fun. That's all I can ask of him. And it has taken me 6 years to get to that point. And I think that's the problem here is that we all think our kids are little Messis or Ronaldos or Hollands or Bellingers or whoever you want to be. And they're not. And we have to that's our problem, is that we are not honest. We live in a fantasy world here in the United States, I feel, with our talent, our kids.
No, listen, that's not just the States, that's globally. So everybody, I would hope that I'm very sensible with regards to my boys. My boys both play football. At the academy level, probably not at the moment. Will they be? Don't know. But I think that is the big thing, is that obviously with regards to parents, is that everybody always has this thing in their head that their child is going to be the one, their child is going to make them all multi-millionaires, become the next. And realistically, the stats show 0.0000001% of players ever become a professional. Obviously, I was lucky enough myself to do it, but it's like you see when you're at a club, and when even like at what you would call club level, is that every parent, and there's nothing wrong with that, because people love the children. People always want to think that their children are different or better, and that's fine. I think sometimes it's just with certain people, or people who are maybe a little, it's just actually taking a step back and actually assessing it and going, I want to be the next Messi. But realistically, the best player in their club team or team, where you've got to take your one head off and actually be realistic. And it's not, if your son or daughter is amazing, just let them enjoy it. And people go away from the fact that it's a game. It's a game to enjoy with your friends and meet people and be competitive and have a win streak and be upset when you get beat, because these are not in life. If you fail at something, be happy about it. If anything, with regards to your son or daughter progressing and getting to a level of professionalism, great. Realistically, you still want these people to be playing in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s with the friends. Obviously, we have here, I don't know if you guys have it in the US, I haven't seen it, walking football, where you've got 70-year-old men who are walking very fast at football, and you all have the kits on with the like Mo Salah tops on and all kinds, and obviously it's brilliant. They're probably the people that they played with 50 years ago when they're playing now, and realistically that's what the game's all about. But I think people get away from that because it becomes so intense, and so people become so, probably not the best word, desperate or daughter. Is that out of it sometimes? That makes sense.
It does. I told my son a couple of weeks ago, I want you to be playing until you're 90 years old. Like because we watch on YouTube all the soccer stuff, and we came across those walking leagues, and I go, I want you to be those guys, those old men on the soccer field, on the pitch, playing until you can't move anymore and still loving the game. And he looks at me and goes, yes, that's what I'd like to do. And I go, bud, if you have to enjoy what you're doing. And the day that becomes no longer enjoyable is the day that you either have to reevaluate why you're playing this beautiful game or find why you love it in the first place. And that's the thing. I feel in the United States, kids play sports, you tire for scholarships. And I joke because after 1 year of playing club soccer, I mean, you do it for 4 years, you pretty much self-paid for your kid's scholarship because you've paid $25,000. And that's pretty much a year of college today here in the United States, if maybe a little bit less. And if you're doing it for 8 years, these families are spending $100,000+ for their kids to play youth sports. I met someone that they paid over $250,000 for their kids to play soccer, to play at a high level. And I didn't hear the story. Someone shared it with me. And their kid turned 18, got offered a D1 scholarship, and they said, I'm done. I'm burnt out. And the dad goes, I've spent $250,000 to get you to this point, and you're giving it up. And yep, because the parents suck the fun out of it.
This first part really sets the foundation. What development actually looks like when it's done right. John lays out a clear path, structure, environment, and patience. No quick wins, no shortcuts, and real development. And in part 2, we shift into the part that really separates players. Mentality, parenting, and what it actually takes to make it. If you guys have enjoyed this podcast, have enjoyed what I've been trying to do, the messages that I'm putting out there, please give me some ratings, some stars on all the podcast sites that you listen to this on. Give me a review, share this, share with others. The more I can make this grow, the more I can continue doing this. I'm really trying to make a difference in our soccer community. So I hope you guys have enjoyed all this. And until next time, I'll see you at the pitch.